Sat Sri Akal, my name's Amma. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about expectations within the Desi community. I recently came to this realization that the expectations my parents have of me are something I care about way more than I realized. And what I mean by that is, yes, I have the freedom to go where I want and do what I want, but deep down, I don't think I realized how much I care about what they actually think of me and the decisions I decide to make, or who I decide to date, or the friends I hang around with. And for such a long time, I thought, yeah, I'm such a liberated person and I do what I want, but I don't think I'm as liberated as I think I am because I'm still going about life thinking, what will my parents think? Moving forward, that is something that I really want to work on and intentionally heal from. And having come to that realization, it has been very freeing to think I can be friends with anyone I want, I can date whoever I want, because the decisions I decide to make and whatever I decide to do with my life, I would like to think my parents love me and support me unconditionally, but that isn't the case. But I also can't live my life just worrying about what they will think of me. That's not me living authentically in the way I want to live. And the way someone decides to react or have opinions about what I decide to do with my life is not my problem. And coming to terms with that, especially as a Desi woman with so many expectations from such a young age, is very difficult to unlearn. On last week's episode, I spoke about hot and cold parents and how I had a disagreement with my dad, which that disagreement has turned into something that's a little bit more. But to give more context, it's something that has made me realize that I still care about what they think, if that makes sense. The three main expectations I think of when it comes to me is who I date, who my friends are, and my career. And now having this epiphany of feeling like, what if I just don't care? What if I just live life and make the decisions of what I want to do based on my own terms without feeling suffocated? It has made me think in a more liberating mindset because that is what I want for myself. I want to have complete autonomy over my life and my choices. For example, when it comes to friends, I have never been the kind of person where I'm like, oh, I don't want to be friends with this person because of their skin color or what they look like or what they decide to wear. But in the back of my head, there have been times where I thought, I can't take this person home because what my parents will think. Not because they're an awful person, it's only because I just worry as to, I don't want my parents to judge them. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable in any way. And this would happen even when I was quite young. And I know with some of my parents' friends as well, they'd be quite judgmental towards me. Like, I just think I was a teenager. Like, why does it matter what I'm wearing or if I've decided to wear lipstick that day? It's just so odd to me. It makes sense as to why those expectations have been embedded into my deeper psyche without me even realizing. But now, as a young adult, when I think about it and I'm like, I can be friends with whoever I want. I don't care what they look like. I don't care what their background is. As long as they are good for me and the love is there and it's reciprocated, why should I have to even care about what my parents think of them? Because, oh, what will people say that Amin hangs around with this people and that people and blah, blah, blah. But that is none of your business. Like, I'm not trying to be snarky here, but my parents are friends with family members and some of my relatives who have been snaky or even like their own siblings, right? But I'm the one who has to worry about who can be my friend. For the first time, I've been able to think with complete freedom that I can do whatever I want in my life and I don't care if my parents will or will not support me because the foundation of our relationship from the get go was always so rocky. I've not always had the best relationship with my parents. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold, as I spoke about it last week. And things will happen, and I give them grace. And I try to be understanding that, they don't have the same education and things were different then. But it really infuriates me, and I feel quite hurt that despite them disappointing me so much, I still care when I shouldn't have to. Even today, I was talking to my cousin about, feeling disappointed. And I know I've heard things where, like, don't expect things, that there's less disappointment if you don't expect things. But at the same time, sometimes I feel like I wish my mum was the mum that I needed her to be. that I wish I could just call her and ask her for simple things or ask for advice. And I can't do that. And it's very hurtful. But then sometimes I think, okay, like maybe things will be better in the future. Maybe we'll get on. Maybe she will get the help that she needs. But it's awfully exhausting. And I really do understand that they were brought up in a different generation, right? But what hurts the most is that why are our parents' generations so against wanting to change or taking the initiative to educate themselves or try and be a better person? I feel like it's just this generation that because we have been brought up with the education of mental health, why is it that our parents are so not willing to change? Like, they will do messed up things, they will say hurtful things, they will do hurtful things, take zero accountability, have no acknowledgement towards it, and then say, "What did I do?" And they act baffled when their adult children want nothing to do with them. We're the ones who have to go through the healing and seek therapy and do the work, end those generational cycles, all for them to say, "Well, what did I do?" I just sometimes sit there and it really hurts me to just think, like, damn, I didn't deserve that. I'm putting in the work. I just wish they could do the same. And they use this excuse of, oh, but our generation is different and we didn't have the education and times have changed and you guys are more advanced and blah, blah, blah. But it's like your lack of wanting to change is my issue. And it is so scary that you do not want to do better for yourself. Now, I'm not saying it's like this all the time, and maybe I'm feeling my emotions a lot more deeply because I'm really going through those real life situations and disagreements with my parents right now as we speak. When things are good, they're good, but when things go left, I feel like we're back to square one, and it's just awfully so exhausting. It's really hard not to expect the bare minimum of your parents to show up for you, to love you unconditionally, to be there for you when you most need them. So for me, I'm in this constant mental battle of like, how little do I expect and how do I expect nothing when you're my parents? And despite all of that, I still give grace and I still understand that, okay, they might be going through it. They're not from the same generation. They're maybe trying their best. I don't know. It is something that many people go through. And because of those expectations, some people are unable to get out of them and feel like they have to meet those expectations. May it be the people they hang out with, who they decide to date, who they decide to marry. It's like, when does it end? And it feels like, for me anyways, that I'd rather live a life of doing whatever feels right to me, to be surrounded by people who love me completely. And I think with my family and relatives, they don't have to have access to the things that I love and the people that I love because they don't deserve it. If they're not going to come correct and be disrespectful, I'm not obligated to share that part of me, even though, yes, it's hurtful and it's like, I want to share all of me and I want to tell you who I am. I was never brought up in a space where I could be completely authentic because there were so many expectations. It's just better for me to have that boundary to know how much I can share with them. I know I've gone on a little bit of a tangent only because I am really feeling my feelings and going through it right now. But in terms of the general expectations in the Desi community, I did journal a little bit and do some research in terms of some of the main points that I would like to cover, just to have a little bit more structure, I guess, and not just to have an episode of me going on a tangent. The first point I want to mention is family expectations. I feel like I feel like throughout this podcast, I've always talked about expectations in general. I think it's really important to promote those open conversations within your family, talking about aspirations and goals and things you'd like to try out without feeling like you can't. Not that my parents were strict for me specifically, but I know with some of my other friends who are Desi and brown or ethnic in general, the pressure they had in terms of like education and career from such a young age was very, very intense. And it doesn't really allow for a child to flourish and grow and explore things and trial and error. So, promoting those conversations of dreams, aspirations, and goals from a very young age without expectation is very healthy. And there needs to be more of it within our community. Point two is definitely gender roles. Again, I've spoken about this before, but the expectation that there is on Desi guys compared to Desi women is very unbalanced. And I know that if I was to have children, I'd never put that pressure on my son or my daughter to be like, you have to be a certain way because you're a girl, and you have to be a certain way because you're a boy. Let them exist. They're too young. Even though I was forced to make roti at such a young age, and it is a very good life skill, I know for sure some of the guys within my family who were not expected to do that and would just, go and play their little game or be with the boys, cannot even cook a meal for themselves to this day. And they are grown adults. And I think that's quite concerning that certain life skills that are very crucial to every single human being are put upon a girl or a woman when it should be a shared skill, regardless of your gender. And that's just one of the thousands of examples that are out there. Number three is marriage and relationships. I have a whole episode about marriage and the expectations around that specifically. If you haven't already watched that, feel free to go and watch that. But the main point I would say is to emphasize autonomy, that marriage should not be an expectation at all, that you should be with someone because you want to, someone who aligns with your values and what you want from a relationship, rather than feeling like it is something that is expected. And I know that if I was able to have those open conversations with my parents of, oh, I'm thinking of dating this person, or, felt safe enough to even come to my parents to say that I have an interest in someone, I wouldn't have made some of the many poor choices that I made, because I knew I had someone who was older than me and wiser than me to guide me and advise me in a safe environment without the judgment or the expectation of, oh my God, she's dating out of her culture, she's going crazy, or whatever that expectation was. And the hilarious thing is, I'm gay now, so what a plot twist. For me, I just cannot care. There's no room to care because I'm so far left from the expectation of a typical Desi brown woman as to whatever the hell that is. I can't remember what point this is, I think four, but definitely the mental health talk. I will always say this and promote this, that having open conversations about mental health, regardless of your age, is very important, especially for our parents. And it does come back down to the lack of education and mental health not being a thing during my parents' time or their parents' time. But the stigma around mental health and therapy is toxic and harmful to individuals and our society, because somehow we still feel that it has a negative stigma around it, that you're crazy or you're ill or something's wrong with you. But when you have suffered something mentally and you have lived with it for so many decades, it's not something that's going to be fixed overnight. You need professional and medical help, and there's nothing wrong with it. From the lack of education and the expectations and the societal pressures, mental health and therapy and seeking any kind of help when it comes to that is still so negative and taboo, and it's just heartbreaking. So I will always say, promote those conversations, have those open conversations, and seek the help that you need. There is nothing wrong with it. But in some situations, it can be difficult when that individual doesn't want the help or doesn't want to take the steps to do better. There's only so much you can do. You can't fix everyone, you can't heal everyone. You can just try and educate and have those conversations. And that brings me to my last point and my favorite point that seems to be quite a consistent theme throughout most of my episodes, which is boundaries. I'm never going to stop talking about it. I'm never going to stop mentioning it. But having strong boundaries and being able to say no will only benefit you and help you put yourself first. But that brings me to the end of this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it and felt like you could relate. I think it's very clear that I feel angry. Maybe you can hear it in my voice. I'm not too sure. But despite having this podcast and speaking so openly about it, that this is very real, this is very raw. And I really have come to the understanding that it's just life, that this is how it's going to be. It's just more important of how I put myself first and how I deal with it. And I'm so grateful to have good friends around me who reciprocate me. I get to choose my family, and it is very wholesome. I'm just glad that I've finally come to the understanding that I don't need to care about the expectations my parents have of me, since they're so unrealistic and unfair for me to achieve. I don't want to forever feel like I'm a child seeking for my parents' validation, that I want them to be proud of me, that I want them to love me, because that is the bare minimum of what a parent should do for their child. And if they're unable to reach that, I also get to make the decision to remove myself out of that situation and have boundaries. I can't believe this is my ninth episode, and in 2 weeks it's going to be my 10th episode. So it's all very exciting. And for a minute, I felt like I don't know where this is going, but I had to remind myself why I did this in the first place. That I'm so excited to look back through every episode and see what I've learned and how I've healed. And I know I'm not the same person that I was a few months ago, let alone even last 2 weeks. So it has been incredibly wonderful to do this and create a small community. And I said at the start that I don't care even if one person watches this. I just hope someone is out there who feels like they can relate and understands that it's going to be okay, that the things we go through as Desi women and men are very difficult, and there needs to be a better platform for that. So I hope that I've helped in that way of creating that platform for you. I'll see you guys very soon. I thank you for watching. I thank you for listening. Dhanyavad. Sat Sri Akal. Bye.